Online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. We brought you this story when it went down in January, the case of Ilya Shapiro, who was slated to be the next executive director of the Constitution Center at Georgetown University Law School, or Georgetown University, generally. But he tweeted out, this is at the time that Biden was contemplating who his nominee would be that would meet the threshold test of being a black woman. And Shapiro tweeted out that the best pick for Biden was another judge who's an Asian man, who is solid, progressive, very smart, but alas doesn't fit into the latest intersectionality hierarchy, so we'll get lesser black woman. And lesser black woman set off a firestorm suggesting this was racially tinged and it was racist and it was denigrating black women as less thans as compared to Asian men or white men or whatever. You know, it's just the normal moral panic you get with everything that is where race is invoked. At least you get that from the race hustlers on the left. Shapiro apologized for the poor word choice, but of course he was just saying that, you know, the most qualified with the jurisprudence that passes muster on the left is this other guy. It wasn't about Asians versus blacks versus anybody else on the high court, but, you know, that sort of contrition and reason has no place with the modern left. And so he was, put into purgatory pending an investigation, which is still pending. But he's still been going around speaking. And because of this tweet incident, he is now being treated like pretty much any other conservative that goes to speak on a college campus, including law schools these days. He joins us now for more on this. Ilya Shapiro is the author of Supreme Disorder, Judicial Nominations and the Politics of America's Highest Court. Paperback edition is available July 5. Ilya, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, good to be on. You know, I've done probably about 15 or more public events since this so-called scandal broke 2 months ago, and the Hastings event that you mentioned is the only time that anything has happened. So most students around the country, most lawyers, audiences where I've spoken to are perfectly reasonable. But of course, the one outlier made national news again.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, that's I guess that's an encouraging note, considering what we saw occur at Yale Law School just a couple of weeks ago, combined with this at Hastings, that there's some sanity still left out there on college campuses somewhere.
Well, get back to me tomorrow. Tomorrow I speak at the University of Michigan Law School, so that's I think a possible one as well.
So tell us what happened at University of California's Hastings School of Law.
Yeah, so I was invited before my tweet scandal, long before, to talk about my book, to talk about the coming confirmation battle. Everyone was expecting Justice Breyer to retire this year at some point. And that invitation was still good. And I came in. March 1st was the day where I was speaking, and I wasn't allowed to speak. So the event was introduced by the sponsors, the Federalist Society, and there was a professor there ready to comment on my presentation, which was about the history of confirmation battles, the roles of politics plays, all that sort of thing. And students filed in and started banging on tables and chanting and swearing and all of that sort of thing. And for the entire period, the event was slated to go for an hour, so I was shouted down the entire time. At one point, I went outside with the organizers so that we could figure out what we were going to do. And I said, look, I'm happy to stand there for the entire hour and just, not speak or try to speak or, be there. And that's ultimately what I did. But while I was out, one of their deans, one of the deans was shouted down. Then another dean came and told the audience that they were violating school policy, not by protesting, but by disrupting and not allowing the event to go forward. But that didn't change anything. So I
They
went
were
back at the time. Sorry, go ahead.
no. I'm saying they were physically banging on their desks.
Yes, yes, they were chanting, they were banging, they were swearing, they were doing call and response things. At one point, a couple of them were getting like right in my face physically. I'm like, I'm just trying to get to the lectern. I'm just trying to stand there, and they, nobody laid hands on me, but they did sort of, stand in front of me and things like this. It was, I have pretty thick skin, so it was surreal. It was amusing. Um, but yeah, I was there for the entire hour, and there was no presentation, there was no event. Eventually, as the clock struck 1 o'clock at the lunch hour, I filed out and left.
I can't wait for some of those budding barristers who may end up practicing actually in a court of law to get an adverse jury verdict for a client and see how they react.
They'll have a temper tantrum. What a bunch of babies. I mean, my God, that's like kindergarten kids do stuff like that.
But that's what it is.
And then they're scolded
But-
and they don't do it again.
But so here's the thing, Ilya. So what that experience, frankly, the Georgetown experience too. Although I know you can't comment on it pending investigation, all that. But anyway, what does that say about? You were talking about some elite law schools here. What does that say about where those law schools actually are, and what that means for the future of the legal profession as well as the republic generally?
Yeah, campus cultural pathologies have spread from just the undergraduate campus now to law schools. And indeed, these are people that are going to be facing much tougher challenges in their professional careers than a tweet that offended them. And yet here we are. And the same thing happened at Yale Law School a week after my event. Ironically, on an event that brought together someone from the left and someone from the right to talk about their mutual commitment to the freedom of speech, even though they disagree on most everything. And that was similarly, shouting and banging and all that at Yale. So this, look, the only way these things are going to stop, and I wrote about this in the Wall Street Journal last week, the only way this is going to stop is if administrators actually enforce their rules, right? So Hastings, as I said, that one of the deans came out and told them they were violating the code. The next day, the president, the chancellor, emailed the whole student body saying these were violations, and it's pretty clear, it's explicit in our rules. But of course, there's no punishment, there's no discipline, there's no enforcement. At schools that do make it clear and do enforce the rules, like the University of Chicago, like Princeton, where I spoke Thursday night. They thought there might be protesters. They brought in security and all that, and nothing happened. It's a matter of enforcing your own rules. Some schools have just terrible rules, but most schools do have, including Georgetown, have a commitment on the books to freedom of expression, including allowing invited speakers to speak. And recall, this is not just in the middle of a park where people are trying to shout at each other. This is a reserved space where a speaker is coming in and supposed to have Q&A and all the rest of it. But at a lot of places, the administrators are simply afraid of the students, and this is not going in a good direction. Although maybe this last state of protests and things, maybe we're turning the corner. Maybe things are going to change. I don't know, but it's not obviously a healthy moment for our country on campuses, especially. But that's just the canary in the coal mine of our broader national discourse.
No question. But here's the thing. Those administrators ceded control of the universities a long time ago, and there's no evidence and, frankly, little incentive for them to try to reassert control. Frankly, Shelby Steele wrote about this at Coe College in the 1960s, and it's just metastasized over the last 50 years. You've seen it in spectacular fashion in places like Evergreen State, where Brett Weinstein used to teach. There's so many examples that if the administrative staff, the university president, is the only way you're going to claw back the university to be a free marketplace of ideas, then the university in its current construct is doomed, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, that's probably right. And maybe market forces will operate, and increasingly, parents will balk at paying, tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars for this kind of, kindergarten environment. Maybe employers will actually want, students that can handle adversity and can tolerate different viewpoints and challenges and what have you. I don't know, but it's a slow process. And the irony is, you talk about the university capture in the 60s. Now there's very much an attack by the new left against those old school liberals who at least, recall the Berkeley free speech movement. They actually wanted the freedom of speech. So a lot of irony there.
So you said you're heading to University of Michigan. Are you bringing a security detail with you, or what are you expecting?
They've been working with the administration. They actually had a protest last week that I guess hasn't made national news yet, but the author of the Texas Heartbeat bill that reached the Supreme Court, Jonathan Mitchell, former Texas Solicitor General, he was protested. I think the event eventually went on, but they stood on tables in front of him so nobody could see him while he was speaking, and just bizarre stuff. Anyway, after that, there was another email from the law school dean, and the students who invited me to speak tomorrow have been working with the administration to, we'll see what happens. They brought in another speaker. They changed we agreed to change the subject from Supreme Court confirmation battles to free speech on campus. So basically, are you really going to shut down and mob a free speech on campus event? So they brought in an outside speaker to debate me, and we'll see what happens tomorrow.
I think they're sort of unbounded by their own hypocrisy. I mean, I think that's what we've witnessed. Going back to your case at Georgetown, the time this was going down, Barry Weiss over at her Substack raised the specter of previous tweets by a Georgetown professor named Carol Christine Fair, the tweeting she did during the Brett Kavanaugh confirmation process, where she tweeted, among other things, did Georgetown professor Carol Christine Fair, look at the course of entitled white men justifying a serial rapist's arrogated entitlement. All of them deserve miserable deaths, while feminists laugh as they take their last gasps. Bonus, we castrate their corpses and feed them to swine. Yes. Well, I mean, that's a provocative take on a Supreme Court justice nomination. But again, I know this isn't, you're still under investigation, but there was nothing that happened to Carol Christine Fair about
this. We're now into week 9. Yeah, we're now into week 9 because it takes a long time to apply a short university policy to a tweet.
Right.
But here we are, week 9, and I'm in purgatory was correct as you described it. I'm being paid, mind you. Getting paid not to work is nice work if you can get it. But it's this weird situation.
I mean, at some point, do you regret sort of apologizing for the tweet because it clearly was taken in a light least favorable to you as opposed to the light that's consistent with your body of work and your perspective? Do you regret even continuing to allow yourself to be part of this Star Chamber investigation?
Well, I mean, I'm not withdrawing. I'm not resigning from Georgetown. That would allow the mob to win.
Okay.
As I told Barry Weiss when she was writing up that piece, I don't regret apologizing because I did misspeak, or rather, fully phrase my tweet, and I pride myself on my communication skills, both oral and written. And there I slipped up. It was late night doom scrolling through the hell site that is Twitter, and I kind of got upset and fired off a hot take. And it's happened to a lot of us, I think. And so I don't, I apologize for using poor language, but I don't apologize for the underlying message. I don't apologize for staying in the fight and for being opposed to using racial criteria for hiring, anybody, let alone high government officials.
He is Ilya Shapiro. He's a constitutional law scholar. He is a nominee for executive director at the Georgetown Constitution Center. He's also the author of Supreme.
No. Let's be clear. Actually, I was onboarded. This was part of the weirdness of this. You call it a Star Chamber, whatever the investigation. I am the executive director and senior lecturer at the Center for the Constitution, but I'm on leave.
Yeah,
and I'm not allowed to do work for the university. So it's really bizarre.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. He's also the author of Supreme Disorder, Judicial Nominations and the Politics of America's Highest Court. That paperback edition available July 5th. Ilya Shapiro, thanks for joining us. Good luck at the University of Michigan. We'll see.
My pleasure. Take care.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Listen to Dan and Amy on your smartphone. Download the AM560 mobile app today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
The following is a paid political announcement.
When Richard Irvin decided to take on Pritzker for governor, he wasn't following a whim. He was answering a long familiar call to duty. Irvin joined the Army out of high school, served in Desert Storm, decorated for bravery. Surviving a brush with death in a dangerous war zone, Richard dedicated his life to service. because he loves his country and knows how fragile freedom and security are. As a prosecutor, Irvin put thugs behind bars, drug dealers, gangbangers, 1,000 convictions, hired more cops, and cleaned up crime as mayor, balanced budgets, passed property tax